Syntech. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Grower. Today we have a very special guest, Painted Lady of Painted Lady Gardens. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, you folks may or may not recognize her. I know her from the Michigan Brothers Grow Show, and I've recently started following you on Instagram after finding out a little bit more information on how to reach out to you off of the FCP02 channel, where I saw you over there with my boy Mad Hatter Organics, who consequently will be on next week's episode.
Nice.
That being said, though, if you are a fan of the show, guys, and you want to support me, head on over to Patreon, link below. All sorts of cool stuff there. We just started a new Discord, so come and join us. Anyway, that being said, here to talk about growing with the Painted Lady, and I'm very, very stoked to have you on the show. Been looking over the grow stuff that you posted on your Instagram, and wow, awesome flowers, beautiful product. You certainly know what you're doing in the grow room. But that being said, before we talk about grows, let's talk a little bit about you as a person. Maybe give me some background, your life story, if you will, in 60 seconds or less.
Okay, I'll try to keep this short. I don't know.
If we go
try to
over,
keep it to
okay.
60 seconds, but go set the timer. Well, basically, I am born and raised in Michigan. I moved to Chicago for a few years, but I'm back in Michigan, and I'm happy to be so because our laws here are fantastic for cannabis. And found cannabis that is probably about the age of 17, 18 for those that, legality purposes, because I had chronic migraines, and it immediately was my savior. I hate taking pills. I don't like anything to do with pharmaceuticals or any of that kind of stuff. So this was a natural medicine, and I found my way through that, and it seemed to help for not only my headaches, but stomach aches, cramp, whatever, you name it. It was great. So I obviously knew from an early age that this was medicine, and I got into growing it about 5-6 years ago now. Just a random person that I met became a friend and showed me the way, and I quickly realized that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and have been working in the direction of doing this professionally ever since.
That is fantastic. And it just sucks you in once that first plant and you really have a little bit of success in the grow room. Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk about your grow style specifically. How do you like to grow? Tell me about it.
Okay. Well, I'm an LED grower mostly. And I have always used, until recently, I've always been a synthetic grower. I've tried them all pretty much. I started out with Fox Farm and have moved through the gamut, GH, Advanced, Veg Bloom, all of them. I just kind of wanted to try everything and get my hands on it all and see what worked best in my environment. And, because I am a caregiver here in Michigan, I do have patients, and it's important to me to make sure that I grow the cleanest and most quality medicine for them that they, need. And so I originally was just kind of shown Fox Farm and all the synthetic ways of growing until I was asked to join the Michigan Brothers Grow Show. And in watching them and a couple of the guys there are organic, and in watching Embracing Organics, another podcast over there on YouTube, I tried my hand at organic, and it's been interesting, and it's been trying. It definitely is not like synthetics at all. And I just really wanted to know, like, it's easy to grab that bottle off of the shelf of any kind of nutrient line and just read the directions, throw it in there, and you're good to go. Okay, this is what it tells me I need to do. Okay, cool. But do you really know what's in that bottle? So that's kind of why I wanted to do organics, is what am I really feeding my plants? What's that bottle of Tiger Bloom actually got in it that the organics will help me make, help me understand. So that's kind of basically what I've been doing, is experimenting with pretty much every kind of grow style, but I really, really have found my niche with Bloom yellow bottles. And they are an Australian company, organic, but it is bottles, but they are organic. And my girls in my environment love it. I found them through Mr. Grow It, which I believe has been on your Meet the Grower.
The inaugural
guest. He was the first one, wasn't he?
You bet, yeah.
Yeah. So I found them through his podcast, and his girls really liked it too for a while there. I know he used them. And so I wanted to try it out, and they were at my local favorite grow store one day. And so I gave them a shot, and I've gone back and forth, kind of experimented ever since I found them. And I've found that that's just my favorite. The girls love it. It's, easy to use, and for my environment, it just seems to be working the best. So I think I've kind of settled on that. And like I said, I use LEDs. I'm an HLG fan. And now I've recently discovered, I run the B spec and the R specs.
Yep.
I have separate, I'll get into my grow in a minute, but and I recently discovered Laura Flux, which is a new company out of Detroit here in Michigan.
Okay. Not familiar.
Yeah, they are crushing it. I picked one up last year, I guess it was, and my girls absolutely love it. It's probably one of the biggest lights on the market. It's an 8-blade, and I think it's 5x5. It's just huge. But yeah, so that's what I've been running, and I run separate veg and flower rooms down in my basement. And yeah, it's just been my passion ever since that first, like you said, that first plant entered my house. I just absolutely love it in the wintertime. It's nice to go down there, and here in cold Michigan, and obviously you in Canada, it's nice to have that space to go and escape, when you're freezing cold and just came in from outside or something, to just have that space. And it's just kind of just like being down in Florida or in the tropics or something for at least a couple hours while you're down there with them. And I just really, really have found my passion with it. And I just keep trying experimenting everything. I kind of like to run my genetics the first time I run a strain for the first time, just all the way through without really doing anything to it. I don't do a lot of training to it. I don't do a lot of trellising. I've tried trellising and doing all that before, but I'm lucky enough to have enough space that I really like just using yo-yos, plant yo-yos, and
absolutely
stringing them up from here and going over there, and spreading out the plant that way. Or tomato cage, I like to do that too, instead of those trellises are just so efficient, and they definitely work, but for my purposes it's too hard for my 40-something-year-old ass to get underneath that and try to water and all that stuff. So, and I'm a member of the Michigan Bros Grow Show, and we are butt chuggers. So I don't know if you know what that is, but it's bottom watering.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of good things that can help prevent, like fungus gnats, for example.
Exactly. And so they have shown me the way with butt chugging. So yeah, we get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
We get a kick out of it, both negative and positive feedback from some people, but if it makes us giggle when we're down there, well, why not? So yeah, we like to bottom water and use sips, and I generally like plastic containers. I'm old school plastic container, and I have all of them. I have fabric and I have radical bags and everything, but I've really, really just found that the plastic just does the best for me, and the butt chugging system and the plastic pots are where it's at. So yeah, it's pretty much my style.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your grow space specifically. You say you've got separate veg, separate flower. Talk a little bit about that.
All right. Well, I think my veg is probably about 8x10, 10x10, I guess. And yeah, I was lucky enough when I bought my house several years ago to just have a completely open basement. It's all cement block. So it was just completely open. And originally, obviously, I went down there and I was like, "Ooh, a man cave," I wanted a, pool table and bar and the whole thing. But then I just never got around to doing that. And then a friend, my mentor, came over and was like, "What's your basement look like?" And we went down there, and his eyes lit up, and he's like, "This is gold."
Yeah.
So yeah. So then I just kind of, it was just kind of funny because, when you first start growing, you just kind of slap things up and, do what you do with what you have. And that's kind of what we did with some 2x4s and some poly and, this, all the normal stuff that the growers will always need in the beginning. And it was just kind of, it wasn't ideal. Let's just say that much. So,
well, you got to start somewhere though, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you learn.
Everybody has to start somewhere. Exactly. So once I kind of started getting to know more growing on my end of things and not relying solely on him, it was clear that I kind of knew what I was doing. And so that's when I just kind of said, I think I can take this on myself, and got a contractor over here and created the walls. So I have a separate space for the veg and the flower. And in the middle, I have my little nutrient station. So it's just kind of perfect. I have the door here for the veg, the door here for flower, and the nutrient station in the middle with the HVAC tied in. And then everything is vented out up through. They're not sealed rooms. They're tied out into the chimney and up and out for ventilation purposes, for odor.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it does require a little bit of care and attention and whatnot. Any concerns from the neighbors or anything like that? Generally pretty cool where you're at?
Funny that you mention it, because yes, well, thankfully my best friend lives on this side of me, which is fantastic.
Sure. Yep.
But I do have a senior citizen, let's just call her, over on my other side, who did give me a phone call with concerns one day about the odor. And I quickly reminded her that it is now legal in Michigan, and that if she has a problem, I guess I would recommend that she bring it up with, I don't know, the township. But yeah, I mean, here where I live, everything's legal. I've got a grocery store and a dispensary on the corner. So it's, I try to do everything I can as a home grower to respect the people that don't want to smell it and that aren't into it. So that's when I received the phone call, that's when I tied everything in and out to the chimney, because it seemed like the odor was just kind of staying on the first level,
Cooling
like outside, in the driveway, and she was coming over there, and So once I tied it
go
up and
both
out,
ways. So I mean, that's the thing. As long as your neighbors are cool, I mean, it's generally not too bad and whatnot.
Yeah, she hasn't had a problem since, so I'm good.
Awesome. So talking about problems then specifically, you've got this big fantastic place to grow, but things don't always go according to plan. Tell me about the bad, when things went off the rails and maybe didn't perform to expectations.
Well, as we all have experienced failures in the grow room, it's just kind of learning experiences. And I don't know if I really want to consider them failures. They're all just learning experiences, like I said. So, and we've all had them. Thrips, powdery mildew, you just all have to learn how to use your environment and with the equipment that you have and use it correctly. So pulse monitoring system, ever since I got the pulse monitor, that has helped tremendously, so that I know what's going on in there at all times. And just making sure that you have your humidity on point, your temperature on point, so that you don't come across issues and pests. I had to get rid of, there was a thrip infestation so bad, it just came in, and actually it was from my mentor. He brought in some clones and took them right in, and they had thrips, and the next thing you know, the whole flower room had to be tossed. So yeah, we've all dealt with that, but it was just so late in the flower, and we didn't want to spray, and so powdery. The only thing I haven't had, knock on wood, is spider mites. And I know I'll deal with them.
Yeah,
I know I will. I'm just waiting for it.
Yeah.
But so pretty much, as far as, that's pretty much the only things that I've really, I can't say that I've done, like, had to destroy many harvests or any crops or anything too often. That thrips crop was the only one I really had to destroy too much. And then, I haven't had any huge disasters. So I guess I've been lucky.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, being a mindful gardener, of course.
Sure.
So, talking about pests and of course learning from the thrips incident, what do you do now for IPM?
I really like to use Swirsky mites. Okay. So I like those little sachets that you can just hook right onto the branches, and I really like Arbico, or I never can say that right, Arbico Organics. And I get nematodes. So I water in nematodes a lot, and I use the Swirsky mites, and then I spray in veg only. I don't use it in flower. I rely on the Swirsky mites to take care of everything in flower, but I really like Lost Coast. That's
Okay.
just kind of been my go-to. I've tried Mammoth Bee, but I really like the Lost Coast. I think it just kind of takes care of a lot more things, and the smell is nice, and the plants seem to like it. And yeah, so I really like that. That's
That's
pretty
great.
much my go-to.
Yeah, I too do very much the organic method, predator mites, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just it's I think it's a little bit more peace of mind because at any time you've got potential pest pressure hitting that garden, and if you've got that army of predators waiting, you're going to probably fare a lot better than just doing regular spraying. Not that that's not a bad idea either, at least in veg.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the good grows, when it all came together and, you knocked it out of the park. Tell me about that.
Oh man, I immediately think of my lemon Jeffrey from Irie Genetics. Um, I had one plant, and I think it was in. Did I have it in a 5 gallon? I think it was in a 5 gallon, just a simple 5 gallon pot, and that thing, I think it got about 6 feet tall, but
Nice.
it produced almost 22 ounces for me.
Oh my
And
god.
yeah, it was just fat and big and dense, and just the smell was incredible. And it's probably one of my favorite strains that I've one of my favorite strains to smoke, actually, because it's a really nice all day kind of get shit done weed. That's kind of what I call it. It's my get shit done weed. It doesn't leave you couch locked. It just kind of gets you motivated to get things done. So
Yeah, I like
yeah,
that.
that was probably my well, I think I had I think I had 5 or 6 plants in that crop, and I think I pulled almost 3 pounds. So
Fantastic.
it was a pretty good haul. I really liked that one. And not just the yield. I mean, yield isn't everything. We know that as home growers, it's not everything, but when something like that happens, you obviously remember it. So it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, for sure. The big
Yeah,
ones always stick out. It's just, yes, yield is not necessarily the king, but damn, it feels good when you grow a real big one.
it does.
Yeah. So tell me, Irie Genetics, of course, Rasta Jeff, the
Mhm.
Irie Army. You're affiliated. How's that been working with Rasta Jeff?
He's amazing. I learned a lot. I probably learned 95% of what I know from growing from watching his Grow From Your Heart podcast. Dude Grows show, I always watched that too. That's kind of how I started learning. My mentor showed me a lot, but to a point, and so I kind of wanted to learn other ways of growing
Yep.
from the podcast. And I stumbled upon Rasa Jeff's podcast, and I learned so much from him. And I just kind of would reach out every now and then and just ask him questions. I had to put AC in my flower room, and I just was like, hey, what's the best way of going about doing this? I knew he would have the right answer. And so he took the time to send me a 3.5 minute video on exactly how I should do it, and showed me his own grow room. And this is what I've got. And so, ever since then, I've just been like, people that take the time to help you out, that's where I'm going to put my dollars back in return. And so I just started buying Irie seeds and kind of reaching out here and there and watching his live Instagram lives. And yeah, he just kind of got to know my name. And so in talking and questions and everything, he just reached out with some tester seeds. And so now I'm testing for him. So I've got some Jack the Ripper that I've run for him, and I've got Afterglow, which is a clementine and a rise cross.
Ooh.
That he may have ended up with a clone of my cut somehow. I don't know how that happened, but somehow he ended up with a clone of mine. And we might be seeing that as stems here in the future. So I'm stoked about that. So we'll see what happens with that. But he's a fantastic breeder, and he's always there if you have any question. And so that's where I always want to show my respect and put my money is into people that return it.
Yeah, I hope to have him on the show one day for an interview. He seems like such a genuine individual, and
Mm-hmm.
his his podcast being titled "Grow from Your Heart," I think just speaks to who he is as a person. Great guy, great guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you think more people should know about when growing cannabis, or perhaps what they're not doing enough of.
Well, I would have to say probably not doing enough of pest IPM. It's just so important.
It's crucial.
And, I'm guilty of it too sometimes of, oh, did I, when was last time I ordered those Swerskis, or when was last time I changed them out? You put them on the hooks and you let them go. And do I need to do that? You just really IPM and environment. You really have to keep an eye on that environment, because if it gets out of whack in outside those parameters that you want, like any kind of more than 10% swing in anything, you're really risking a risk for powdery mildew and pests and pretty much any kind of pathogens. So you really just have to keep an eye on your environment and make sure that everything is right.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with more. And speaking of the environment, then recently did a live stream with a bunch of friends of the show, and we were talking about specifically seasonal issues in the indoor garden. Do you, as a Michigan grower in the basement, find that you've got different seasonal pressures, and there's certain times of year that are a lot more difficult to deal with?
Oh, definitely. The summer. Woo. And we don't even, we get hot, but it's not like Arizona hot or anything. So I can't even imagine what it would be like for them. But yeah, the summertime is difficult. It's difficult to, if you're not a tent grower, like I'm not a tent grower. So it's really difficult if you're drying anywhere to make sure that your humidity and your temperature are right. You got to have AC, you got to have dehumidifiers, you got to have everything going. And in the summertime, it's really difficult to get that right. So, and the temperatures, you got to run that AC. I remember one time I had left for a few days to go back to Chicago to visit friends, and my mentor was taking care of things. And at the time I didn't have air conditioning in my house. And it was the middle of summer, and he calls me on the phone. He's like, "We're about to lose this crop.
Oh, no.
You got to get AC in this house." And I'm just like, "Hey, what do you want me to do about it? Go get an AC." It's like, so yeah, you really have to make sure that you're got everything going and that everything is right. Otherwise you're just gonna be chasing the problems instead of being proactive so that you are preventing the problems.
I've said it before myself. The environment is key. You have to have environmental control. Like, your lights are super important, your genetics are super important, but if you don't have the environment, the second two really don't matter that much, because you're gonna be facing that issue.
Yeah.
So then, talking more about the industry and whatnot, and equipment and that sort of thing in general, what do you feel that the industry could be doing more of to help us as the home grower?
Lowering prices. I
won't complain.
Yeah, it's like some of these things are just, it seems like it just keeps going up and up. And with technology advancing the way that it is, it just seems like that price could be coming down a little bit. Some of these LEDs are pretty pricey, and it's intimidating for newer growers that want to get into the industry. They don't feel like they can afford it because, well, everyone's telling them, don't get a blurple, those are shit. But at the same time, I bought blurples when I first started out. My mentor used HPS. Yeah. And I wanted to try the LEDs because I was getting those energy bills every month, and I was paying them and he wasn't, so I wanted to try something a little more energy efficient. And so when I was researching the LEDs, it was, it's crazy expensive to get, a room full. I need a lot of lights, and it's really expensive to get that started up. So, maybe if the prices could come down a little bit, or, geez, I don't know, what else could the industry do to help us out? Just make things more accessible. The genetics, it's hard for the breeders to get seeds to, cross state lines and that sort of things. That's obviously going to come with federal legalization, and there's problems in that area, and we can't really do much about that yet. But I think it's on its way, and hopefully that problem will solve itself. But for the most part right now, it's, for a newer grower, I think prices are just intimidating.
For sure. And you know that it's such a sliding scale too, because you see these, well, myself for example, I mean, I've got a nice grow room that I've spent 2.5 years building up, and I've had very fortunate luck from, you know, guys like Tyler over at Grassroots sending me a couple beds. Super lucky, right? And that just takes time. Lights, for example, though, go out and you get the best light you can afford at the time. You can always upgrade down the road, right? At least it's getting you growing. It's getting you started with a plant. Get that environment, something started, a place to grow. You know, a little bit of control, a little bit of humidity if you need it, a little bit of heat if you need it. But start somewhere. Don't let prices definitely detract you. And I couldn't agree more, because you walk into that grow shop and you see the price on some of these things. It's through the roof.
Yeah.
So, message to you, grow shops. We want cheaper prices. You spoke about legalization there just a minute ago. What do you see happening in the next year, 3, 5 years, for example? Is it gonna happen down in the States?
I think it is. I really do. With all the states that are opening up, I mean, Virginia just legalized.
Yeah.
Come on. So,
Isn't
you know,
Alabama or something going medical here too?
I'm not sure about I haven't heard anything about
It
Alabama,
was an
but
A state or something, but
Virginia, you know, they're one of the first southern states. You know, obviously Oklahoma's booming right now, but
totally.
Virginia is like one of those old states, man, that just we never would have thought would have been one of the first, you know, to legalize down south. So, yeah, I think it's coming, and I think that we all have to be prepared and try to educate the legislators on it as much as we can, so that they aren't going into this thinking that you know, it's just it's still scheduled with heroin for you know, it's
that's
crazy.
the dumbest thing, I think, really.
Yeah. So it's we need to educate everybody so that they know that this is medicine, that this is not just this isn't a drug. This is not heroin. Nobody's ever died from cannabis use. So I think education is going to be really, really important once federal legalization starts becoming, I don't know, on the docket, because
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen, and we all need to be prepared as home growers too, that things could change, and we need to be prepared for that.
Hopefully it just gets better.
Let's hope.
And that's what we'd like to see.
Yeah.
So getting back into the grow room, let's talk about strains that you like to grow. When you're looking for a new plant to bring into the space, what are you looking for? What do you like?
Well, I am a caregiver, like I mentioned before. And so I always have to take into consideration my patient's needs and wants first. So that's my very first concern, is to make sure that I'm growing the strains that they will, you know, benefit from. So first and foremost, and then secondly, I just really love a plant that's beautiful. And I love to go down there and look at the plants that are beautiful, and that may be vain, but you know, it just, they're the ones that are, they don't even really have to be super frosty. The colorful ones, the ones that have that fade in the end that just are beautiful, like a beautiful fall day. I just really, really enjoy growing a beautiful plant, and one it doesn't even really have to necessarily be easy to grow. I mean, I'm growing caps cut right now, and that's notoriously difficult and finicky. But yeah, I just really like a plant that's beautiful, and obviously in the end, one that I enjoy smoking. I'm an old school flower girl. I haven't even gotten into the concentrates, and I know that's
it's a dark path, believe me.
Well, I love it all. I love learning about all of it. I love, you know, I have a rosin bomb, and I've used it like 3 times. It's silly, but I just want to learn every single part of the whole cannabis industry. So I've dabbed a few times, but I'm just kind of like, there's just something about either rolling a joint or hitting a bong that is a really enjoyable experience. And I think for some reason the dabbing just kind of like just seems so rushed to me, like you know, you're taking all these big hits and then you're done, and then like it seems like 10 minutes later it's gone. So I'm just an old school flower smoker, and shit, I don't even remember where that question was going. Where was it going?
I Talking about favorite strains, but definitely I think
Okay, favorite
we hit it pretty
strains.
good. We hit it pretty good.
Yeah, so that's why what I enjoy in my garden is beautiful, beautiful plants and ones that my patients enjoy. And my favorite strain, I think of all time that I've grown, is Grape Diamonds from Ethos.
Ooh.
It's a beautiful plant. It's, as it's frosty and diamondy, and the terps on that are great. But I get a lot of, I don't know how old you are, but when I was growing up, there was a thing called Hubba Bubba Gum, and they had a grape flavor that I
Okay.
loved. And when I grew this plant for the first time, I was like, "No way! It's Hubba Bubba Gum!" It's like they took a piece and dropped it in some gasoline. So
Oh yeah, there
that's
you go. I
that's
love that fruity, gassy stuff.
Yep, me too. That's why I like Lemon Jeffrey and Cherry Garcia from Ethos. I'm a real big fan of Ethos Genetics. Years ago, we were kind of chatting ahead of the show there for a few minutes, and I was kind of telling you the story about
Yep.
how I discovered Ethos, and I discovered them at the High Times Cup here in Michigan. And Colin, the breeder, spent about 30 minutes going over all the strains with me, and to me that's important, somebody that spends time with. I was a newbie at the time, I didn't really know what I was doing, and he spent 30 minutes when he had a line behind me of people that probably knew what they were doing as opposed to me, and he still spent that time. And so that's where I'm gonna put my money back. So I bought that multi-pass when that came out, and so twice a year, I think it is, we get drops of
Oh,
like
cool.
17 to 20 some different strains. And so I just get to pick and choose. It's like a kid in a candy store when that box
Yeah.
shows up, and so I've just really, really been a fan of Collins Genetics. And Ethos is always, I've run, geez, I've probably 15 different strains from him or more. And yeah, it's more than that. I know that. And they've all been winners. They've all been winners. So I can't say enough good things, nice good things about Ethos and Irie Genetics as well. That Afterglow was, and the Lemon Jeffrey are probably the favorite things that have come out of my garden. So
Oh, that's spectacular. And it's just customer service and willing to go that extra mile. I mean,
exactly,
it counts for so much.
it really does.
Back in the grow room, you're reaching for that favorite tool. What is it?
Favorite tool, I would have to say, are probably my pH meter and my EC meter. Yeah, my Blue Labs, those are my favorites. So you always got to make sure that, obviously, in synthetics, you always have to make sure you know what's going on and what you're feeding your plants, and what's coming back out of them in the end after you water. So those are probably my go-to tools. My go-to product, I would have to say, would be Recharge.
Ah, the DGC. Good old
Hmm.
Scotty Rail and recharge. I've never
Yeah.
actually tried it myself. I find it a little cost prohibitive up here in
Yeah.
the Great White North. But that being said, I really do want to try it because I've heard wonderful, wonderful things.
Hmm. Yeah. Ever since I introduced Recharge into my regimen, I've noticed difference. So, I really feel like if you notice a big difference in a grow, that's a product that you want to keep putting your money towards. So, yeah, and I've got a local grow store here that gives me a pretty good deal on the Recharge. So, you can't say no to it, and it's got so many good things in it, and the microbes and the molasses, and feeds your microbes and everything. So I just noticed that when my plants need that little extra oomph, I do it once a week until about week 5 of flower. And then I even do it with my seedlings and everything too. So I just have found that they've just become more stronger, healthier plants when I use it. So that's my go-to for sure.
Right on, right on. I use a similar microbial product. I'm going to plug right here, microbial mass on the shirt. Just same idea. It's you're
Yeah.
introducing microbes on a regular basis, and
Mhm.
when you got the microbes there to do the work, the plant is going to totally benefit from it. And I see it. You're vouching for it there. So people, give your plant microbes if you're not already.
Yeah.
Consequently, you're still out in that grow room and you're doing the job that you hate the most. Tell me about it.
Trimming.
Trimming, yeah. That
Well,
seems to be a standard answer.
yeah, I mean, trimming, washing pots. you
Yeah.
know, just that kind of stuff. But it
Convenience
really,
jobs.
honestly, I would wash pots all day to not have to do my title insurance day job anymore.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. Sorry, boss. But he knows, you know. And yeah, I just there I just love spending time in the grow room. So really there isn't any horrible job. Maybe defoliating sometimes, you know, if you're not wearing sleeves or whatever, you always gotta
Get a
you're
little
getting,
sticky.
yeah, if you're in flower anyway. And but other than that, I just really enjoy spending the time with my plants, whether you know they're in veg or flower, and I think they really benefit from that time that you spend with them too.
I agree. I agree. And I love to be out there. I find myself in the grow room sometimes, just sitting there staring, hanging out
Yep.
with the plants.
Yeah. Do you notice that's when you find stuff? Or Asta
Yep.
Jeff always talked about that when I was first learning from him, and he would always talk about the grower's stare. And you know, you do everything that you need to do, and then when you are getting ready to leave the room, you just stand there and you just look at everything, and that's when you find stuff. That's when you find, like, you know, something that you didn't notice, or like, what is that white spot? Oh my god, it's powdery mildew. How did I, you know, what it just something that I like to do is just kind of sit there and look, and whether it be discovering like a bug or something that you might see, or a really cool photo. I like to do that too. And that's been kind of my latest thing, is getting into taking really cool shots in the garden of my plants.
And
So,
the Instagram shows them off very well. And
oh,
speaking of
thanks.
the Instagram, I have a very important question to ask. Tell me about the kittens.
Oh my God, my COVID kittens. Yeah, of course, you know, last year we all were kind of stuck at home in our grow rooms, and it was just kind of weird because, and I saw it as a sign, I don't have notifications turned on for this app I had called Nextdoor, and it was like a neighborhood app that you can join, and it gives you recommendations for plumbers or whatever, or people will say, hey, my car got broken into last night on this street, you know, make sure you lock your cars. Well, I don't have notifications turned on for it. One night I was in the grow room, and all of a sudden I heard my phone go off, and I looked, and it was a notification that these 3 kittens needed a home. And so crazy me, I already have 2 adults. Yeah. So I went over there, and I was only going to take one, but then when I got over there and discovered that they were most
Sucked
likely,
in and
yeah, they would end up
yeah.
on the street if I hadn't taken all 3. I got suckered into, and I couldn't just take one and leave the other, or taken 2 and leave the what.
Oh, I
So
saw the picture. They're absolutely adorable. I have
thank
cats
you.
myself, so my co-host, Mr. Cheddar Cheese, sometimes likes to jump up on the desk, although tonight he's suspiciously absent. Anyway.
Yeah, mine are too, which is weird because I usually have one as well up here. So I don't know. Maybe they're,
Yeah.
I don't know, having a party.
What advice would you give to somebody just starting out in the grow room?
Just starting out, I think probably would have to be, man, it just all goes back to environment for me.
Yeah.
It's just so important. So you just always have to make sure you know what temps you should be at, what temps you are at, what your humidity is at, and just start from there. That's the basic building block, because if you don't have those parameters in check, you're never going to have a crop that is living up to its full potential.
Yeah, very good way to put it. And you touched on the pulse grow monitor earlier. Now that is a more expensive piece of equipment, but I think anybody who's growing should have at least very minimum that little temperature and humidity sensor. The
Definitely.
$10 one you get from Amazon sitting in a grow room, and keep
Yep.
note of that because it's the changes. I mean, you're out there every day. You're looking at your plants, keeping an eye on things. Changes happen. Changes cause problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used one of those for years until, just like you said, when you first start out, you buy what you can afford. So
Yep.
I bought some blurples. I bought those little tiny hygrometers. You can buy 3 of them from Amazon for like $16, put them each, put it in your dry tent, your drying area, your bedroom, or whatever you have. And that worked for me for a long time. I mean, it didn't let me know that my humidity was out of whack when I was at my friend's house down the street, but now that I can afford to upgrade to the new LEDs, to the HLGs, to the LoraFluxes, and to the pulse monitoring system, I'm lucky to do so. And so yeah, I would just have to say, start out and with those little hygrometers and do what you can to know what your environment is. And that way you can start growing awesome plants.
Absolutely. Have you ever had a piece of equipment fail you, let you down?
Oh, my dehumidifier.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah. Guess what happened? Powdery mildew.
Oh.
So, yep. Of course, it quit overnight on me one time. And yeah, I had no clue because at that time I wasn't running a pulse.
Hmm.
And yeah, by the next day, and it was midsummer. So it was just like I opened the
Swampy.
door to the grow and it was like a wall. It was like going to Florida, man.
No doubt, no doubt.
So the humidity hit me and I walked in and I'm like, oh man, it just was a nightmare. So yeah, that's the dehumidifier was huge. And it's probably the biggest piece of equipment I can think of that failed that really made a difference.
Yeah, no, and there's all those little tiny ones, the stuff that you buy because it's cheap and whatnot. That'll crap out, and you just don't buy that cheap one again.
Yep,
Huh.
the pH meters. That's why.
Yeah, those are the worst.
Yeah, definitely spend some money on a good pH meter. Other way, and you got to calibrate those things every month too, because I have done that before. And the next thing you know, I'm looking at my plants. I'm like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And then I thought, when was the last time I calibrated? It looked, and I was almost a full point off. So, you just got to make sure you know what you're feeding your plants and where your plants are at in their environment.
Yeah, and get out there and look at them every day. Why? Because they're pretty. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Painted Lady. Well, we're getting to the end of the interview here, and we didn't so much talk about where to find you on Instagram. What's your tags over there on Cannabuzz? You're on there as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Painted Lady Gardens, and I am on Cannabuzz. I need to get over there more often. I just am, I need to get over there more often. So I'm at Painted Lady 13 over there, and you can also find me every Sunday and Monday night on the Michigan Bros Grow Show over on YouTube.
Great content over there too. Really enjoy watching that myself.
Thank you.
Well, I will leave you with one final question here to close out the show today. What do you feel the next big thing will be for cannabis?
The next big thing for cannabis is going to be legalization. I think it's going to be federally legalized. Yeah. So I don't know, how soon it's coming, but I know it's coming. And then it's just going to be how all the legislators deal with it and figure out all the legalities of the whole situation in the industry with the, driving and all of it. They're just going to have to, it's going to be a long time and it's going to take some education, but I think it's coming for sure.
Yeah. Hopefully one day we can start mailing each other a big bag of weed.
Exactly.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
It's going to be wonderful. I know it's going to happen. It's going to be wonderful.
My dog agrees there in the background. Okay, well, guys, if you're not familiar, again, check her out on the Michigan Brothers Grow Show. Head on over to Instagram, start following her. Otherwise, Painted Lady, thank you so much for stopping by. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I definitely enjoyed our conversation today.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing more shows in the future.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. We out.